welcome back to Catapult Your Career, where we delve into the reality of various careers and explore practical advice for numerous professions. And we're going to switch it up a little bit today. We've got a good friend in Peter Komolafe, who is an author and financial expert, to speak with us today. But yeah, it's good to have you, Peter. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm really, really good, and thanks for having me on. It's yeah, I know that you've been doing this for a long time now, so it's exciting for me to be on your platform,
Yeah.
seeing that you actually took this through what you see this season 2 now, or something like that.
Season three. Season three.
Season 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you've been on your own journey with this, so yeah, thanks for having me on, mate.
Yeah, and just on that, I suppose, credit where credit's due. This wouldn't have even been here if it wasn't for you. I have massive. I have to give massive credit, I suppose, to yourself for the podcast, because I was actually procrastinating on the podcast for some time. I wanted to do it for a few years, and I was part of like a little mini accountability group that you kind of held a little while back, and you very kindly let me kind of use your account and kind of get the podcast up and running to get over the initial barriers. And then my poor listeners, I haven't stopped since, mate. So,
Well, I would say that they're very, very lucky that you've actually done this, and at the end of the day, mate, you did the hard work. Launching something like this it's not easy.
yeah,
And it does take consistency and it takes organization. And yeah, I know firsthand how hard it can be. So
yeah,
hopefully I played a little part, but you did all the work, mate. So
absolutely, absolutely. And I suppose I introduce yourself as a kind of author and financial expert. I suppose, especially that financial expert. Tell me, what is a financial expert for you? What is that?
you know what, mate? I don't even know. Look, do I know what a financial expert is? Look, they call me a financial expert.
Yeah,
I suppose I am an expert because I've had a long career in financial services. So
yeah,
I've worked in retail banking, corporate banking, wealth management. I've advised clients as a financial advisor. I've helped people get mortgages as a mortgage advisor. So I guess I'm an expert in that realm. Um, but it's only because it's a byproduct of my job and my career that I know this stuff. And it's the reason why I started doing what I do now, because after it's 18 years this year,
yeah,
there is just so much that I wish that I'd known when I was younger,
yeah,
coming through the industry, that I just thought social media has to be a place where I can share some of this information. So
yeah,
financial expert is this wonderful kind of like label.
yeah.
But there were lots of experts in lots of fields. So who knows? Who knows?
This is not.
Mate, it's all by mistake. None of it really was intentional at the very, very beginning, at least.
Hmm.
You know, I went for a interview in a bank in a building society because I had to. I was forced to go to it. I was on benefits at the time. I wasn't long off the street because I was homeless for a while. And they were like, well, if you don't go for this interview, we're going to take your benefits. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
it's a bank. I owe them loads of money. So they're not going to give me a job. If you want me to waste my time, I'm cool. I'll go there. I'll waste my time. I tried to sabotage it, but lo and behold, the lady who interviewed me was like, oh my God, you're great. My customers are going to love you. And I'm like, yeah, all right. You'll check who I am and how much money I owe, and that will be the end of it.
hmm,
And I don't know what she did, but I got a job. And then pretty much from there, at that point, back then, it was actually quite prestigious to work for a bank. So
yeah,
when I was in the door, my mind was kind of like, oh, this is a good place to be, actually. There might be some prospects here.
hmm,
And then it very quickly became quite intentional, particularly when they started to find out that, or at least they found out as I was finding out, that I'm really good at explaining like complex things in a really simple manner.
yeah,
Um, so when I started noticing people saying, "Oh, you're really good at this and really good at that," I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can push. But the whole financial advisor thing is literally just a byproduct of me finally getting to Canary Wharf and working in this company, this investment house. And I'm like, if I really want to progress, I need to take exams to qualify as a financial advisor. Um, and I did it purely because of that, because I wanted to be taken more seriously in the job that I was doing at the time.
hmm,
And then slowly and surely, I'm working with the financial advisors. I'm their consultant on like a pension or investment case, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, I can actually help people transform their finances and like really understand how money can play a big role in their future finances. And I was like, and I kind of was almost like being bitten by a bug. I was like, this is so cool, especially when you see people who didn't really have an idea of what their finances might look like, and you put something in place and it's like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was even possible. Thank you. That bit is hugely rewarding. And that was the main thing that kind of is my driver, even for what I do now.
Amazing. And I mean, thank you for kind of sharing that. And I think there's a lot for people to kind of take out of that, that it's not this magical mystery that sometimes we wake out of bed and we know exactly what we're going to do for the next 30, 40 years of our life. Like, actually, you have little niggling thoughts or little opportunities that pop up, and then you kind of do them. You go, oh, I don't like that, or I like a bit of that, and then you follow it, and it just kind of evolves. And it's like a snowball effect, where 3, 5 years down the line, all of a sudden you're like, I actually really enjoy this. I'm actually quite good at it. Okay, let's have a little look. Is there qualifications? How can I do this even more? How can I progress? And it sounds like you had that journey, which I think for those who kind of watch you, perhaps, or who are already aware of your kind of profile, I think it's nice to know the story behind it. That everybody, given the right skills, the work ethic, and all the rest of it, and also a bit of luck, as we all need it, can get to that place and do what they ultimately want to do, whether it's your kind of influencer content role in terms of an author, whether it's a lawyer, whatever profession you want to do, it's following those little niggles that kind of jump up in our lives. Um,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've been lucky that I've had maybe three sponsors, no, four actually. I will say I have four people who through my career have made a really big difference, who have been my sponsors and my mentors, maybe more sponsors than mentors.
yeah.
So the first lady who gave me a job, Jenny Berry, like I don't know what she saw in me. She saw something I didn't even know that I even had at that point. And that was the kind of like the first stepping stone. And then after that, there was a lady called Mandy Mitchell, who was my manager in one of the branches when I was working in retail. And that was the point where I went from retail to corporate banking. She was the one who was like, actually, you can make the jump from here to there, but you need to do it in a very specific way. So she gave me like CV training. She helped me rewrite my CV for a role,
Hmm.
right? So there was her. And then I was in corporate banking. I quit corporate banking to get into wealth management, and I took a complete and utter punt. Like I was living down in East Sussex at the time. I had a nice company car. It was cushy, and I was like, I'm just going to move to London and get a job. I want to work in Canary Wharf, and I don't have a university degree, so I thought it can't be that hard. Little did I know, in Canary Wharf, they don't look at your CV if you don't have a university degree. So
Hmm.
but when I did finally get into Canary Wharf, I had Richard Horner and John Scannell. Richard Horner in particular, who was the real kind of like, dude, there is something here, and you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
And whilst you're here, you need to make sure that you optimize and make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunity you have. And he was pivotal. He was very much the last sponsor that I had that made the biggest difference in my life. He had conversations with me that really you should have with your dad, or your dad should have with you. He
Yeah.
was one who made me realize, I'm in a place where I never thought I was going to be, earning good money. Well, you better get your act together and start making the right choices if you really want to if you want to build that foundation.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's so special. I actually just literally just shared a post about a couple of days ago around mentors, sponsors, whatever you want to call them. And like I found this was really helpful for me transitioning my career from like 6 years kind of project management, strategy management in the NHS to where I'm now in terms of the coaching practice and also working in higher education. And I always say like seek you, but 5 years ahead. So like I always used to seek people who were like coaches who were like 3, 4 years into their coaching practice, because don't get me wrong, there's always something you can learn. But if I saw like once I first had an idea about coaching, sort of like a Rich Litvin or a Simon Alexander Ong or one of these like the real top level, they would be definitely able to give something to share with me, but they're almost too far removed from where I am. And that 5 year window, I feel like, is really helpful for me personally, because they're not too far away from the experiences that I've faced. Um, and those sponsors sound like they've been massive for you. I suppose, do you have a sponsor now? And if not, given how successful and how pivotal they've been for you, do you think that's something you could even look at now or in the future?
Really good question. I think I'll tell you my experience and what I think. I think it's easier to pick up sponsors and mentors when you are in an organization
Hmm.
and you've got that structure around you. For what I do now, I'm self-employed. I run my own business.
Yep.
And the natural reality is that there's a lot of competition for the realm that I work in right now. So I'm lucky that I've been doing TV over the past couple of years. And this year I said I want to be more respectful of my time. But this year I've had more people call me from TV for TV work than I have previously. And I
Mm.
suppose that's just an extension of last year and the year before. People kind of know me now. They know that I give my best and I've got good relationships and stuff. But it's quite competitive in that space. There's only very, very few of us. And so finding a sponsor or finding a mentor under my current setup, I found to be quite difficult because everyone is pretty much either doing the same as me, we're aiming for the same thing, and that competitive nature means that people don't necessarily want to collaborate.
Yeah.
It's almost a competition. I don't believe that it has to be, but that's just me. And maybe I'm being naive, but I just find it difficult to find a sponsor and a mentor. I would love one. I mean, I say that. I mean, Paul Brunson is a great guy, and he's been very, very, very helpful for me, especially when I did my first show on Channel 4. He gave me some words that I didn't know the meaning of until the show, but he was like, and I know that I can call him, but I haven't necessarily needed to call him just yet. So I suppose I do have a mentor there.
Yeah.
I've not called on him just yet. He's a very busy guy as well. He's doing freaking. He's got so many share. Like literally, I will text him and he's like, "Dude, I'm an issue. I'm doing an issue and married at first sight and all this kind of stuff." I'm like, "Wow, okay, cool." So at the same time, I don't want to impinge on his time, but
Yeah.
I know that if I needed him, if I said, "Listen, dude,
Yeah.
what do you think of this?" He would come back immediately.
Yeah. And I think that having that kind of safety net or aces in the hole, whatever you want to give it, I think that's really, really kind of nice to have and really empowering. That when the shit hits a fan and you really need that support and someone to lean on, at least you have that person there. And especially in your situation, you know, it's a bit cliche, but the higher you go, the lonelier it is. Like when you've now become self-employed, you're now in this situation. You said there's a heightened competitiveness in terms of that area. There's less and less people, I suppose, who want to like give you a step up, really. And it almost alludes to something I've heard of, like crabs in the bucket. When you're in an
Yeah,
organisation, people want to do well and make you kind of look good and help you because it rightly or wrongly might look good on them as well, or actually genuinely it might make them feel good. But then, hang on, if you get above your station and you grow a bit too big, and then you start going too high, all of a sudden it kind of rubs people's noses is in it. So it's really interesting just to hear from your point of view and the kind of stature or level you are at, your experience on the journey. And I suppose with that journey, you are, and this is not blowing smoke, but you're probably the hardest working person I know personally, in terms of like the output you put in, and the drive you have, and the amount of kind of, I suppose, responsibility and accountability you give to the tasks you have. And there's always a phrase, and it might make you smile, called like, are people dragged or driven? And that premise of like we have a drive, we know where we want to go to, we're clearly self-aware of where we want to do and what the actions we're taking to get there. Or are we dragged, where we have that insecurity, could be even from a little child, that we're like always trying to kind of dumb that pain, dumb that voice in our heads, and it's actually dragging us without us knowing to that place. Now, I'm not going to say, are you dragged or driven? Because we might not be conscious of that. But what's your thoughts and reflections on the journey you have and I suppose where you still want to go?
I can give you a really honest answer on this because
Yeah.
I am both. I'm dragged in the sense that there's a lot of stuff from, and I went through therapy, and this last year.
Hmm.
There's a lot of stuff from my past where I'm like, I want to prove a point because, I never should have been here in the first place, and I've been here, and this happened to me. So part of it is I'm dragged because of that, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. That has definitely been a positive driver for me.
Yeah.
Um, it's meant that I've not taken no for an answer where in certain circumstances other people would have just given up and I'm been like, nah, like you're not going to tell me no and I'm just going to be okay with it. We're just going to keep chipping away at this until you say yes. So I definitely, it has definitely helped me in that road. So I'm definitely dragged on one phase. I'm driven as well, I've been driven at very specific things though. And I've been very, very intentional around certain things that I'm driven to. But also, I think within this as well, I think when I look back over my kind of like experience in my journey, it's amazing what your mind can do. And I've been subconsciously driven to things. Is subconsciously the right word? Maybe it is. Like when I first started in financial services, I said, I'm going to work at Canary Wharf. Didn't know how I was going to get there, but I'm like, I know that I'm going to work here. I was doing music at the time with my friend in London, and I would be in London every weekend, and he lived in Canada Water. We would go walking around Canary Wharf every weekend. I'm like, dude, I'm going to work here one day. At that point, I wasn't even in, was I in financial services? I was just in the door of financial services. And I'm like, I'm going to work here one day. Didn't know how I'm going to get there, but I did. Subconsciously, my mind was drawn to that. And as it so happened, when I quit, well, I got a lucky call from a recruiter saying there's a job in Canary Wharf not far from you. We think you're going to be great. And I'm like, dude, this is it. This is the opportunity. I'm just going to go. I'm not going to be second best to anyone. I fast forward and think about, okay, so I went to go be a financial advisor. I qualified in 2016, 17. And even then I was like social media, social media, social media. But I didn't bite that bullet until 2020. And when I started in 2020, I was like, book, TV. Those are the two things that I thought if I could go to that next level, that would be it. As a natural progression of the channel, the podcast, all of that stuff, TV came knocking. Shortly after that, a book deal came along. So I think it's a bit of both. And I think it is about what you see in your head. If you can get an idea in your head that I want this to happen, subconsciously you head towards that. And subconsciously you start to do things that make those things a possibility that will help it materialize. And I think I wouldn't say that I've been lucky. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of luck, but I'm definitely conscious that that is the case for me, for sure.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you giving that kind of honest reflection. And I think, like you said, it and hopefully it wasn't framed on purpose, but there isn't necessarily a negative with that dragged or being driven. I think the dragged in particular, you
The
use
drag is often the biggest driver.
exactly, you use what you
It's,
got.
it's, it is the intrinsic motivation that you need to step forward.
Yeah,
And like we talk about motivations all the time, there's intrinsic, there's extrinsic. Extrinsic will only get you so far. Doing things for money, doing things for recognition, doing things for accolades, that will only get you so far. The thing that takes you the furthest is that intrinsic, that drag.
yeah,
I've come from here. I don't want to repeat that cycle. I want to break that cycle. I want to prove to the world, I want to prove to myself that I'm better than where I came from. That drag, that intrinsic motivation is what pulls most people through all kinds of adversity, situations that you would just give up on and just be like, nah, I can't do this anymore if you're just a normal person. Like it's almost to the point of insanity. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm just going to keep going and going and going until someone says yes, or I create something of my own. And that you need that inner pull.
yeah. And on that, I mean, people do go two ways, but I always think the greatest misfortunes often create the greatest people. So you look at like if you do any bit of research into Elon Musk and his parents and the background he had, you can see the person he's become. And if you look at all these massive people, often their childhood or whatever it may be, there's often massive things that have happened in an early form, and it's either put someone one way or the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's unfortunately, whether it's drugs or depression or whatever it may be, or it's kind of shot them to the other different stratosphere, and that kind of pain, you use what you have. You use
Yep.
what you have, and often that intrinsic motivation, that pain, that fear, whatever it is, that person who laughed at you when you were 5 years old, and it still kind of plays in your mind to this day. You
Yeah,
use that,
yeah,
and I just
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
important once you have that. There's nothing wrong with using it, but just having the self awareness around that. That will there be a point, let's say for you or any person who's listening, where actually I'm happy where I am, and why am I still doing these things? Am I doing them because I want to, or am I doing them because I'm being dragged to that place, still being dragged by my insecurity from a former life? So, thank you so much for kind of sharing that your experience and your background on it, and on that kind of drive and what you've done. I suppose what made you shift from your most recent shift, I would say, from the financial, you went retail, corporate banking, a financial advisor space, to now more author, financial expert, almost, you probably, I don't know if you like the term, but that influencer kind of position.
Yeah, I hate that term.
I thought you would, I thought you would like it. What has made you shift to that, would you say?
Um, Man, look, at the end of the day, I think it is down to my own personal experiences. Like when you start working in financial services, when coming from a background where, we were poor, we were broke. I lived in Nigeria for 10 years with no running water or electricity. And then start working in a bank and financial services, and you're like, okay, well, people do this and do that. Then I make my own mistakes. I've been homeless as a result of those mistakes as well. Then you start to figure out, well, people put money certain places. And it really came to light when I started working in Canary Wharf. Like, people put money where, and it grows to do what, and they use that money to do what. Like, mate, it for me it was like a revelation. Like,
Mm.
literally as though someone had done magic in my face. Like, you can put your money in what, and you just let it sit there, and it increases in value, and you don't have to do any work for that. Like, to me, I'm like, my mind is being blown, and I'm finding this out in my 30s, and I'm like, if someone had showed me this when I was 18, 19 years old, like, I would have done something completely different. I may not have done something drastically different, but I would have done something different that would have compounded into me being in a better position. And that's really just been the whole motivator of me doing what I do now in the social media space, because I just want to share with people what I know, and doing it in a way that is easy for people to understand, easy for people to follow and digest, and more importantly, practical. So you can actually take some of it and just go do some research and maybe find your own way around something. That's the driver for it. That's always been the driver since 2020. And so I think I've been a little bit lucky again, because now I've got, I haven't got the biggest platform. It could be way, way bigger, but I have what I have. And I guess what I do have now is a little bit of credibility with the TV stuff, and the book being a bestseller and all that kind of stuff. But it's really just born from the fact that I just want to share what I know, and I want to do it in a responsible way, not, trying to sell people the dream of get rich quick and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all this nonsense. I want to teach
Yeah,
people the basic stuff that if you implement day to day, these are the foundations for you to build something on. And
yeah.
that's what it's about.
Yeah, don't forget the Bugattis and the Rolexes. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, and I think like that message is that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, because I wish that when I was 15, 16, I could actually know what careers were out there. Because some people don't even know what a lawyer is. They have no
Hmm.
idea. And I think this podcast is meant for two types of people. It's meant for those who are just entering, so 15, 16, entering the world of work, and those who are, say, 30 plus, who are in jobs they don't enjoy and actually now want to transition into something else. And this is like looking at people from quote unquote industries, exploring their journeys, and using that kind of to help other people, empower them to feel actually I can transition my career, and there are jobs out there that I can use my skills for. So it's a similar mission but different in terms of helping that younger
Can I
generation.
just make a point as well? I think what you're doing and what this podcast is designed to do, especially for the younger side of that demographic that you just described there, is really important, because I think we need platforms like this to be the antidote to social media.
Mm.
Like, if people are coming out of like secondary school now, what do you think are the top jobs most of the kids want to do?
Yeah, they want to be
Like,
you.
well, yeah, they wanted to be an influencer, yes, 100%, but they also want to be either, footballers, musicians, I don't know, traditional jobs feels like it's going out the window.
Yeah,
And in the social media age, particularly when it comes to men, specifically young boys leaving school, there is this pressure that you need to be making a lot of money. You need to be making a lot of money as quickly as possible in whatever way possible. And the world cannot function with those kind of like outlooks moving forward. You need doctors, you need lawyers, you need professional people in traditional jobs. Everyone has to be an entrepreneur now. Like, it's hard to be an entrepreneur. Like, it's hard to be an entrepreneur. I don't get sick pay, I don't get holiday pay. I literally do, if I don't work, I don't earn any money. And like, people don't quite recognize that side of the coin. And so platforms like this are so important to let people know that you can still be successful in a role. These are the paths that you can go down, and this is how you would go about exploring them. Because like
Yeah.
the social media age, it's great and all that. It does offer opportunity, but it also, with so many voices and so many people doing stuff on social media right now, the value of what you are able to generate becomes diminished because of the the mass saturation
Yeah.
that is out there, and that's one of the things that I don't think people quite realize on that younger end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I think I know there's different terms that come up, but that's why you often hear the term like intrapreneur. So, like, entrepreneurial characteristics, but in organisations,
Hmm.
if you have that flair and you have that kind of spirit to kind of create and whatever it is to solve a problem, at the end of the day, I think that's what most entrepreneurs do. They find a problem and they try and create a solution to it. There are still other means to do that. It's not always the case of being self-employed and running your own organisation, like you say. Um, so I think it'll be interesting. I think with all things, there's like a pendulum effect. We're in this pendulum of like everyone needs to be entrepreneurs, and I just wonder in 10, 15, 20 years, will we have that pendulum back to the mechanics or the engineers who are millionaires because they run small little businesses, have a 2 or 3 vans, and they earn lots of money? Because about 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was loads of them. It was old Dave or Jane or whoever it is, and they're just the quiet millionaires who actually live good lives and have
That's the
responsibility.
point, though. That's the point. It is the quiet ones. Like there's this myth that you can't be rich or wealthy in a 9 to 5, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what about the actors? Because they're all employed. The footballers are all employed. All of
yeah,
them are employed.
yeah,
I know plenty of people who are in 9 to 5 jobs, especially in financial services, my industry,
yeah,
wealthy,
yeah.
and they're in 9 to 5 jobs. So the honest answer is I don't know what this is going to look like in 10, 15 years time. I really, really
Mm,
don't. I think the workplace definitely will change, but what it's going to change or morph into, I don't know. Um, yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens, especially with AI and automation and all this kind of stuff coming down the track.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I suppose going back to that message and that intrinsic motivation that you have and you still do on your channel, your podcast, your platform. I suppose how has I assume, but how has that media exposure, like, not just changed your ability to spread that message, but how has it changed your life? Because there's we call fear, failure, and all this stuff, but I would say me and maybe others, and this might be people might think that it's egotistical for me to say this, but I have a level of fear of success because, say, Stephen Bartlett, I would never want to be that level, like where your just privacy and your security, like it's just out the window. And you can't just go to the corner street, have a KFC in your flip flops, and just eat it in peace, kind of thing. And I just wonder how has that media exposure, not just in a positive maybe light, affected your message, but how has it also affected your life?
Surprise, surprise, it's made zero impact. It doesn't impact at all. There's no difference.
Hmm.
There's no difference whatsoever. Um, I don't have any interest in being famous in any way, shape, or form. I'd rather be known for my work. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
My book is here now. So if I die today or die tomorrow, my book is there. That's my piece that I've left behind. It's part of my legacy. It's
Mm.
not about being recognized down the street. I've not been recognized. Actually, this is a lie. I have been recognized from TV, but I've been more recognized because of the YouTube channel than anything else.
Mm.
People come up to me like, I really enjoy your channel. I really enjoy your podcast. Or I was just listening to your podcast literally just a second ago. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I enjoy that more because people talk about the work and the impact of the conversations that I have and the work that I'm doing to try and empower people.
Mm.
That for me makes more um, on an impact on me as a person because it's hard being employed, self-employed under your own steam. It's difficult. So like some days I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like it's hard, it's difficult. So those moments make it all worthwhile. But the media stuff made no difference at all. None. For
No.
me personally, nothing
Mm.
at all. It's not going to change how I talk about things. It's not going to change anything. I did Channel 5 this week. I've done Channel 5. Man, I've done so many TV. I've had a phone call just before this to do BBC Radio tomorrow morning. Zero impact on me
Mm.
whatsoever. But I think doing those kind of thing means that I get to speak to more people, touch more people. And if someone, then off the back of a BBC radio show or off the back of seeing me on Channel 5 or on Sky News or on Channel 4, wherever, then looks at me, looks at my profile, then digs deep enough to know where this all started and where it came from, and they're inspired. That's what it's all about. It's not about glitz, glamour, money, fame, and all this kind of stuff. I have zero interest in any of that stuff.
Yeah, and I, I couldn't agree with you more, because I think for me, like, I would take, I suppose, a level of wealth and kind of success in sharing a value and sharing a message over fame in an absolute bloody heartbeat. Like, and I think the trouble is, so many people would take that fame, I think, in this modern day.
But
Um,
fame doesn't pay the bills, though. Fame doesn't pay the bills.
no,
People think that it does, and it doesn't. Fame does not pay the bills. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it's always been my belief that if you really want to think about fame, money, and the ultimate goal is money, money is a byproduct of good work. And you have to do the good work first for the money to come along. And if you're not doing good work, money simply doesn't come along. Create a space for an event a couple of weeks ago, and the amount of influencers that were there saying, I need to grow my following as quickly as possible. And we had Ali Abdal who was speaking, and he was like, okay, but why?
yeah,
Why do you want more followers? Uh, so I can get to work with brands. Okay, why? So I can make money. Why? So I can pay bills. Okay, so you're here purely because the ultimate goal is money. Where's the good work in that equation? When I started this, it wasn't about I want to be able to make 10 grand, 15 grand a month. It was nothing. I made $0 the first year. Luckily, the second year it kicked off, but it
mm,
was all about how can I deliver value? And this is what I'm doubling down on this year. Last year was a bit of a mess for me because I was doing TV all over the place. You'll know this,
yeah,
massive distraction. I was all over the place.
yeah,
This year, my New Year's resolution revolves around time, making sure that I'm doing things that I feel time wise benefit me, number one, and what I'm trying to do. That's it. I don't have any goals around turnover or anything or subscriber count, nothing. It's about time. And then for me, ultimately, if that means that then I focus in on my content and think about, right, how can my video or my podcast this week help one person? And if I can help one person, it will help two, three, four, five. And then hopefully it becomes an exponential thing where the followers and the subscribers just come as a byproduct of that.
it's a
So
byproduct.
I'm narrowing down on the good work. Good
Yeah,
work is the most important thing.
yeah, and I think money is just an outcome, or just a byproduct of an exchange of value, like you said. And I think for me, with the coaching, I suppose, when I kind of look at my growth, although it's at a fairly kind of stable, but in a positive rate, it's just serving people really bloody powerful, in every single conversation, and actually serving people from a genuine place. I think most people who meet me, can see where I'm coming from and the message I'm trying to share, and the journey I'm on. And if you serve someone really powerfully in that conversation, people, the prime, again, cliche thing, people don't remember what you're saying, they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah,
And I think if you,
100%.
with your message, your book, your podcast, whatever it is, with my podcast, with how I coach people, they just remember, as soon as they think of you or your name, they get that warm, fuzzy feeling and that empowering feeling. And that will stay long after, me and you are, drop dead and all the rest of it. That is that legacy that we're ultimately kind of, I suppose, building. And
Yeah.
with that, as we're going into a bit of a different space about legacy and I suppose how we serve people. What's your kind of perception around values? And is that something you can kind of consciously share, that you have an understanding of your values and what they are, and maybe how they even, I suppose, serve your purpose? Because I often talk a lot about that with kind of the clients I serve, rather than being dragged, having those values at the forefront of their mind and using them to then make the decisions in their life. So yeah, what are values to you, I suppose?
About Lamborghini to Ferrari, I just refuse to. I'm not going to play that game. If I did, yeah, my following would be a lot bigger, but it's not me.
No.
Like, I enjoy nice things, I have nice things, but I don't feel the need to go and brag about it, because ultimately those nice things don't necessarily mean that you're happy first and foremost,
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily mean that your world is perfect either. So through my career, I've worked with very wealthy people who are miserable, who hate it. And if I go back and think about, my happiest years were when I was broke on benefits, but I was doing music. Like I had no food in the fridge. I lived in a really cruddy, crappy little studio. Me and my mate used to wake up, make music. That's all we would do all day. We would record our music, burn it off onto a CD, take it down the club, give it to my mate who's a DJ. We'll perform it in the club. We'll perform it in different places, and we'll rinse and repeat and do that every day. That's the happiest time of my life. Zero to do with money, zero to do with material things. And so authenticity is really important. And for me, because I talk about money and finances and investing in personal finance, that for me is the most important metric of all. Because I could be a shyster and take money for all kinds of Bitcoin scams and all this kind of stuff and make a ton of money, but I'll be damaging my own brand and my own reputation, and that's not what I'm here for. So authenticity for me is one of my most important values. What you see is what you get. If you see me down on the street, I'm the same person I am on TV. I'm the same person I am on my YouTube channel, the same person I am on my podcast. The interaction is exactly the same. I don't need to put on a facade. It's just me being me. And on in social media, people will be like, "Oh my God, but you've got to put on a face." No, you don't. Like, if people like me, that's cool. I hope you do. But if you don't, that's also cool. I'm not your cup of tea if you don't like me. But I'm not going to try and mold myself to please everybody and to be appealing to everyone, because I just won't.
And if you mold yourself to please everybody, you'll please no one. So if you mold
Exactly.
yourself to please everyone, everyone has contrasting views. And even if you did that, say with your YouTube or your YouTube channel, right, and you're creating content and videos for your audience, and right, this is what's going to resonate with them. Of course, you're wanting to serve from a place of value, but you get so far the other end where you're doing things just for other people. Eventually, could be a month, could be 6 months, could be a year down the line. You'll look at yourself and your channel and the content you're creating, and you'll be absolutely miserable because you're not doing it from a place of authenticity, what you actually love and why you got here in the first place. And I think I have a similar value in integrity, which I think is incredibly important in the world of coaching, where you're helping people who are in a vulnerable space. They are literally paying you money to be in a vulnerable space, to share things they're kind of struggling with, to kind of move past that and go to a better place. And if I didn't serve from a place of integrity and kind of shafted people or made people reliant on me as a coach, because that's another thing coaches do, rather than empowering someone, the whole teach a man to fish, so then they can feed
Yeah, yeah.
themselves. It's so powerful, and I think that approach, like a lot of things you've said already, it's not sexy, but it stands the test of time. Because if you're
100%.
authentic now, and if you're authentic in 20 years, you're still going to be here. Where there's only 5 years, 10 years, you might be really good at putting a mask up. Eventually, someone's going to see behind the mask, and it's all going to fall down.
Exactly. I mean, definitely as a coach, I mean, I do coaching with people, quite regularly. And, oftentimes when people come to me for coaching when it comes to their finances, people are already apprehensive.
Mm.
They've probably never spoken about money before.
Hmm.
They have a problem that they're concerned about that is concerning enough for them to pay me to try and help them see the trees through the woods.
Hmm.
And my job is to provide a safe space, and integrity is very important within that. Because, mate, the amount of times that I've had meetings where I'm like, if I was a scammer, I could just take 10, 15 grand off you. I met with a celebrity last year, and I won't name who she or who the person is. And I was like, you're so lucky that you're sat with someone like me,
Yeah.
because another unscrupulous person would be like, yeah, don't worry, I got you. If you
Yeah.
like, let's do a 50 grand deal. I'll take care of you, and they'll be gone.
Yeah.
Integrity is so important.
Yeah, but the thing is with that as well, and I'm sure some people have made it work, but for me, yeah, it's quick money or quick growth. So like the bitcoins and stuff like that. I'm sure you've spoken to me and you've spoken, I think, wide on your platform about the deals that you offered. There was that particular one that's now come out the woodwork, and the chap's been
Hmm.
in jail and all the rest of it. You can make quick money, but then what? At what expense? You make quick money,
Hmm.
quick growth, and then you fall off because then it's a scam, and then you're now blamed, and your integrity and authenticity is out for everyone to challenge, I suppose. So it depends what you want, really. Like for me, my goal is to a typical infinite finite games. The goal of the game is to keep the game going. Like my goal is to be in a business, to do things I love, to serve. My purpose is to inspire people to do what inspires them. And the goal is to keep that going in 10, 15, 20 years. And if I do that, I am achieving the goal. My goal isn't just to make a quick buck and then piss off. That's not how I roll, and that's not how I will ever roll. And I think that's why I resonated with you, I suppose, in your content, because I think you very much share those same values. And I suppose those values have kind of guided you to a place of authenticity. And on that, you've kind of started to do some even new things, which are quite exciting. And I know there's one which is starting to build momentum and grow in this money intelligence. And I just thought it'd be interesting to share, where's it at, what is it, and yeah, share a little bit about where you are with it.
Yeah. So money intelligence is very well. We're still kind of at the building blocks at the moment of it. But what we want you to do with that is, with my experience in financial services over 18 years and being a financial advisor, the industry isn't necessarily caught up with, I guess, the new social media world. So it's how do you bridge the gap between communication and personal interface or personnel interface when you're trying to talk about financial products, and using behavioral psychology as part of that as well. Um, in the industry, it's almost very, people talk about funds and all this stuff, and it's like, yes, you got, understanding their goals and you do all this stuff as a financial advisor, but actually there's a little bit more nuance towards how people's behavioral psychology, how their experiences, how they're made up, their past experiences, how that informs their future decisions. There's a gap between that and the current way of communication that I think in money intelligence we can actually bridge,
Mm.
specifically with training and all that kind of stuff for the industry there. And there's some very very exciting things that you can do with new technology and AI and all this kind of stuff that we're exploring at the moment as well. But it's the whole point with money intelligence is to try and help move that forward, because let's face it, it's the big organizations that have the biggest footprint when it comes to individuals, the
Mm.
banks, the investment houses, all those companies, right? They have millions and millions of customers. If you can improve the way they communicate and the way they interface with from a more human level, then the work that we do becomes a lot more tangible in terms of its footprint and impact.
Like, who will this talk?
Well, we're going for the guys, the organizations. So we're going for the financial advisory companies. We're going after the banks. We
Mm-hmm.
want to work with those people because they deal with millions of people on the cold face. So we can improve that top end approach to the way they communicate and interface with people, then we can make the biggest impact to the individuals that they interact with. I mean, the funny thing is that, ultimately, when it comes to this world of finance that I work in, it's not always about the money, and it's not always about the decisions or the products that are being sold. For the individual at the back end of this, so if you're with, I don't know, Starling, for example, or with Monzo or with Halifax, and you're looking at a savings account, yeah, you might be like, okay, that's a 7% savings account. Or there's an investment proposition over here. If I invested in the markets and over the time it will compound, and this is like 7% here, but this has better value from a long term point of view. The decision to go A or B is not about the logic of
No.
that's going to be more in 10 years' time. It's not about that logic. It's about this.
Yeah.
It's about what did you grow up believing? When were you born? What are your experiences? What did you witness when you were a kid at 5, 6, 7 years old? How has all of that formed into the way you think about money and the financial world?
Mm.
And that's what you need to address. It's
Yeah.
the psychology behind it all. So once you tap into that and you're able to help people realize that, okay, this is how my makeup is. This is, maybe why I spend the money the way I do, or maybe the reason why I look at investments and savings accounts and I don't like the way that makes me feel, or I don't like the way that makes me feel, and I do nothing. If you can get behind that layer, it means better. It means a better understanding and ultimately better decisions. And that's the whole point, is to help the big guys communicate with the cold face individuals on the ground so they can understand how to come to a decision of A or B and be comfortable with that decision as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I often talk about how our feelings and emotions drive our behaviours, and our behaviours often drive our actions. And I think, like you said, like how someone feels in a situation, they might not act in the most logical way, and that's all to do with that behavioural psychology. And a very obvious example that comes to mind is like paying your mortgage off. Like, do I pay my mortgage off and I have that? I can sleep at bed at night and like a baby, and I haven't got all that, or actually, do I put that extra money into an investment account or into this? That for me, I know what I'll be doing. I'll be paying off my mortgage straight away as quick as possible, because once I have that out the way, yes, it might not be the best financial decision, but I know that's security. And for me, a big value is freedom will be massive, because then all of a sudden my freedom has gone through the roof because I haven't got that mortgage payment in the back of my head. And that's not logical, perhaps, but that's my behavioral psychology playing out.
And that's exactly the point. You have A or B. You can go down road A or you can go down road B. The decision of which road you go down is based on your own psychological makeup
Hmm.
and your own circumstances. People will say, oh my God, that's a terrible idea. Never pay off your home. You should be investing and compounding that money. But actually, they're saying that with rose tinted lenses because they're forgetting that actually, when it comes to investing, number one, that takes another level of education and a different mindset. You have the loss and risk, the risk of loss bias to get past number one. And when the markets are volatile, you have to be able to be okay with that and not be like, oh no, it's down 10%, I'm going to take my money. That's the worst thing you can do. So
Yeah.
that psychological makeup you also have to contend with. So when you dig deep into the nuances, it's not just put the money there and it will compound. No. Can you deal with it going up and down? And how do you train yourself, prepare yourself to be okay with that if you decide not to pay off your mortgage first? Because the one thing that I've seen oftentimes is people be like, oh, I should have done that. Then it's a regret because I should have taken option A over option B. And you only make the decision as best as you can at the moment of taking the decision because you don't know what's coming down in the future. And people will often use hindsight as you should have done that. Well, if you knew that this was going to happen, you would have done. But you
Yeah.
didn't. So you took the decision that was best for you at the time. And it's all about managing that psychological aspect to it. It's so powerful when it comes to money.
Yeah, it's not Back to the Future where I can like I can see what's going to happen in 5, 10 years and then make my
Yeah,
decisions. You're bang on. Um, and I suppose just to kind of start to pull our kind of podcast to a close, I think we both very much share the same principle where your channel, your podcast, your platform is all about sharing that message for your kind of younger self, I suppose, or younger listeners. And a lot about my podcast and my mission, I suppose, is to inspire people to do what inspires them. So don't wait till they're 30, 40, 50. Pursue what society deems as success and then go, shit, I wish I did this. I want people to have that realization as soon as possible, and kind of have that ripple effect on other people's lives. And with that in mind, I suppose it's a two-part question. But the first part, knowing all that you know now, what would you tell that younger Pete?
I would have told if I could go back in a DeLorean, if I had the sports almanac, I could steal off Biff in Back to the Future. I
Exactly.
would jump in that DeLorean, go back to younger me, and be like, listen, relax, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. Um, and everything that you think is going to happen, everything you're aiming to happen, will happen and more. So just enjoy the moment now and enjoy the journey that little bit more.
Yeah.
That's what I would do because yeah, it was tough, but I was very uptight, very very stressed out because I was in survival mode. So that's what I would tell myself.
I love that. And, speaking frankly, I think a part of that speaks to me as well, how I feel. Like Ali Abdul has that expression of journey before destination, which kind of aligns with what you said. But that's a bit of me, that impatiency of, right, I need to get to the next level, I need to do this. But, even when I sign, your first big client, or you start your first podcast or whatever it is, more and more, thankfully I have a wife and partner who's very good in this, is making the most of those moments and really savouring them and going, this was my first ever client, like whenever, a couple of years back for me. Like when I signed my 100th at, 10K a pop or whatever it is, I'm going to be laughing, thinking, oh, this is just to be expected. Whereas when 2 years ago, when I signed my first client for like £10, like I was like over the moon.
Yeah,
So I think that journey is so powerful. And you kind of shared a little bit of a point. I suppose it might extrapolate to wider people as well. But if you then were to share advice to not just yourself but to our listeners, what would you share for them to kind of take on board, knowing what you know now?
Oh man, that is a broad question. I think if I were to kind of, make this kind of like a universal thing, and it's not specific to like career, and it's not specific to like kind of like money, um, I would kind of encourage everyone to try and believe a little bit more. I think ultimately, as human beings, the one thing that we all have as a common thread amongst us is that we all want to feel as though we're moving in the direction that means that we grow and we
Hmm.
achieve things. And I can only speak from my experience of being fostered and being homeless and all and coming from a pretty tough background. It's amazing what you can do if you literally just have the audacity to kind of just think, no, I can do better than this. And it doesn't have to be here to here, like a million times better. It just needs to be small. And the craziest thing happens that when you start making those small steps, and you're like, I didn't know I could do this, but I've done it. The self belief that you get is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And like, believe me, it spurs you on. And you start to realize, actually, I am more capable than I thought I ever was. And I would just encourage everyone to have the audacity just to think that little bit further and just think, right, how am I going to do it? What if I couldn't fail? What would be my next step?
Yeah.
Take that next step. Then after that, what's the next step after that? And by the time you sit up and you look back, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I've covered quite a lot of ground here. You may not necessarily be where you want to be, but you've moved forward. And if you're lucky, you're going to be in a place where you're like, I shouldn't be here, but I'm here. What's next? And the bigger question is what is next the right question to ask yourself? Because the biggest challenge a lot of us face is, and we've had a conversation about this, when do you stop?
Yeah.
When is enough actually
Enough.
enough? I'm reading the psychology of money. There's a
Yep.
really good story about a guy who was a trader back in the day, already super, super, super wealthy, like in the stands of those days, hundreds of millions. Puts a risky trade on, loses the entire thing. And history is peppered with people who do exactly that. They achieve beyond their wildest dream, but human nature means you're always looking at that next thing. And the question is, how do you get to the point where you actually say, stop,
Yeah.
it's enough, I'm cool, I'm content, and find another outlet for that energy that you hold?
Yeah.
I don't know. You have
Yeah.
to answer that question when you get there.
I'll let you know when I get there, mate. And I think for me, I love what you said, and I think for me, happiness, fulfillment, whatever we call it, for me is I'm always chasing that place of inner peace. And I think once I reach a place of inner peace, I have that enough is enough. I'm content with what I'm doing. I'm content with what I'm done, and I'm content with wherever my direction kind of takes me. So I think that's a perfect note to kind of end on, Peter. I'll be sure to kind of share links in the podcast information, so where people can find you.
Cool,
I'm
man.
sure YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram are kind of three real big profiles. I know you're kind of present on. But is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to share before we kind of close today?
No, no, no. I think thanks for having me on, mate. It's been really, really fun and stuff. And I'm looking at relaunching my podcast and revamping and rebranding that. So I definitely need to get you on a new one.
Okay.
Funny enough, talking about personal development,
Hmm.
Tony Robbins has a free event, a free 3 day event, which is all online, and I'm doing that next, and I can't freaking wait. I've followed him for such a long time. I've
Same.
actually bought his VIP package as well, so I get to spend a little bit of time with him and a group of people after the 3 hour event. So I'm stoked to go to that right now. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, and I do have a dream of kind of attending one of those live events in America one day. I actually have been on one of those that you've mentioned because he does them. I forgot that Dean Graziosi, he often kind of links up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
him. They're amazing, so I'm sure you enjoy it, mate. So
yeah.
yeah, Thanks again for your time, Peter. And hopefully to the listeners, that was another kind of insightful podcast. A bit more changed it up around the worlds of careers, way people have transitioned, and hopefully you can take some lessons out of that for yourself. So thanks all to listening, and I'll see you all on the next episode of Catapult Your Career.